Hey guys, it's SD, your host of the Life Picks Relationship podcast, where people with all sorts of backgrounds, challenges, and life experience show us how they make their relationship extraordinary.
Hey guys, hope you're having an awesome day and enjoyed the previous therapy client type session. Corey and Jessica, I know it's not therapy on here, but it's still cool. I absolutely love it. And we are working on getting more of those. Today we have someone who I've met by being a guest on her podcast, the Decide to Move podcast. And I absolutely loved her energy, the value. I was like, you've got to come on mine. So here she is today. Thank you so much, Monica and Bijoux, for being here. I'm going to put all her links in your show notes. That way you could go and check out her podcast, follow her on Instagram, and all the other information that you are looking for. Monica, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited. After our previous episodes, I know this one's going to be a great one. You want to start by telling us quickly a little bit about what you do?
Sure. So thank you so much, ST, for having me here. I am so excited to connect with you again. This is super amazing. So I'm Monica M. Bijoux. I am a CEO and founder of Decide to Move. I'm also a host of my podcast called Decide to Move podcast as well. I'm a 2-time Amazon bestseller. I am a licensed therapist, a business coach. So I have a lot of modalities and tricks and stuff that I add to really help personalize when I work with my clients. And so my focus of working with my clients is to really help them not just stay, go from where they are to where they're meant to be, but I help them become more visible, gain credibility and authority in their space by using their own personal experiences to help them get there. So that's kind of me in a little nutshell.
That is so cool. I like that. Okay, now if someone, we all get into fights or arguments, disagreements, I should say, with our partners from time to time. How do you suggest we go about resolving them in the best way possible?
Most definitely. So I actually created a little acronym that I call Fizz. F as in Frank, I-S. So I always make a joke and go, don't walk it out, fizz it out. Because oftentimes when people get in an argument and they feel like it's an unfair fight, one person walks away, right? And the other person's like chasing them to finish the argument because we have different styles. Oftentimes people feel the need to finish an argument, and the other partner may be one that they don't like conflict. They can't handle it. So they attempt to escape out of the room. So you have this uneven dynamic. So one of the first things that I always recommend first off is to ensure that you remember the purpose of what do you want to see the outcome of that relationship to be. When you're arguing with someone, you're arguing for a purpose, right? You have a reason. Either I am arguing because I feel like I'm not being respected. I'm arguing because I don't feel like I'm being heard. I don't feel like I'm being validated. Like, what is the reason that you are having this argument in the first place? Because if it's a person that you really don't care what they feel or think, you're not really arguing with them. You're just like, oh, okay, that sounds good to me. That's what I tend to do. Like,
yeah, there's always like an underlining reason to what's going on here. It's not just the argument at itself.
Exactly. So, because I'll actually have said, whatever you say sounds good to me. And the person's like, well, you don't have anything to say. And I'm like, well, no, I mean, that's your opinion and it's your opinion because it's not like I really, when I say I don't care, it's not I'm being callous, but it's kind of like their opinion is not going to change anything in my life. But when you're talking about a relationship and a couple, one of the biggest things I think for them to remember is that every word that you say is either building the relationship up or tearing it apart. And that is so important to understand because what happens is that when we get defensive because we're feeling hurt and not validated, we end up saying words and saying things that's going to end up causing the other person pain. Like, well, I felt hurt, so I'm going to hurt you back. Well, how is that building a relationship? I mean, are you really wanting this relationship to go? I remember watching this movie, and even though it was a movie, I think back in the 70s, it was called Love Means Never Having to Say You're Sorry. And I was like, that is a very interesting concept. And I watched the story and he would constantly do these things and have to apologize. So what I actually will do with a couple is I'll say to them, okay, imagine there's a glass jar on a shelf, a mason jar. And when you pick it up, it's delicate, so you attempt to handle it with care and you drop it and it falls away in pieces. So you pick it up because you value this jar, and you take gold glue to fix it because it's like now it's cracked, so you want it to look pretty. So you use gold glue. Well, that glue represents your apology. So then every time you drop that jar, how many times can you drop it before it becomes irreparable and unrecognizable? And that's the same as your relationship. So that's one, I'm going to say those things before I get into the actual, fizz that I actually use.
So you never want to apologize.
Well, no, it's not about apologizing, not doing something that's going to cause you to have to apologize. Focusing on why you're doing what you're doing. Are you throwing punches to hurt that person? Now, it's different if you say something and your intent was miscued. And this is where my little trick is going to come in to help. But if it's miscued, saying that was not my intent. I am sorry for how what I said, how it caused you to feel. But this is what and this is what I meant. Not necessarily but, and this is what I meant. Because but, takes and erases the validation of anything you said before the word but. And so it's really about, apologizing in the fact of not intending to hurt that person, not having to apologize because you hurt them on purpose. That's totally two different things. It's kind of like if you're in a store and you bump into someone and you're like, oh, I'm so sorry, because of the fact that it was not your intent to actually bump into them. But oftentimes when people argue, they literally intend to hurt one another. Like, I feel hurt, so I'm going to hurt you as much as you hurt me. And also getting away from saying you made me feel like so-and-so. No one can make you feel like anything. You have to take ownership of your own feelings and emotions. Instead, now I'm going to go into my steps, how it impacted you. So using Fizz. Fizz, the first is fact. Fact is what actually happened. It's not you made me feel like this. You were thinking this. You were trying to do this, because that goes into subjective. That gets you into your feelings and emotions. And then when you're going into you made me feel like this or you tried to do this, the person on the other end now goes into defense mechanism. They go into a defense mode. And all they want to do is hear what you have to say so they can devalue what you said. I didn't make you do anything. I wasn't trying to do that. And so that's not your intent. So when you're using fact, you're actually just saying, this is what happened. So if somebody was yelling at you or they raised their voice at you or say they said a certain word, it's like when we were talking, your voice got really loud. And for me, the next part is impact. It automatically put me in a space as if I felt like unsafe. Like I didn't feel safe in the way that you raised your voice. I kind of feared the fact that that there was something else that was going to happen after that. So impact.
Yeah, you're not blaming them for like,
nope.
You made me feel angry. You're like, I felt scared or whatever you felt.
Exactly, based on the action. And then the solution is, in the future, when we're talking, if you feel like I'm not hearing you, or if it comes off as, like that you're not feeling validated, just stop and tell me, I don't feel like you're hearing me. And then that way we can actually stop right then and there. Because most times people don't do that. They're focused on getting their point across. Well, actually getting your point across is really focusing on the solution. So if I say to you, ST, whenever you ask me to do blah, 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 I felt, disrespected. I didn't feel validated or heard. And going forward, this is what I would like to see us do. It automatically puts us in a solution mode instead of an accusatory mode. And so then you can come back and you can say, that was not my intent. I was not attempting to, have you feel that way. What I really want to do is work exactly how you said. That is a great solution. So we're not even focusing on the problem or being defensive. We're focusing really on the solution, which is really what we want at the end of the day, things to change. And it can be a shared experience because I can say, well, what do you think about that? What ideas do you have of how we can change the way that we, this happened? And so that's my little short acronym that really literally is impactful and has changed so many relationships of clients. This helps with whether you're a therapist or not even a therapist, but like in a relationship with a partner, your parents, your friends, whoever, it's a communication style that's about being assertive and everyone feeling validated and heard at the end, which is literally all of us really want at the end of the day.
I love that so much. It's like so short and so clear that it's not like a million steps. Let's go and figure this out. It's like FIS. I know what I'm doing. All set. I like for facts to tell people, like, if there could be an outsider who could come in and say this is this, then it's a fact. Like, you raised your voice, someone who has nothing to do with the situation just saw it, then it's a fact. Otherwise it's an opinion.
Exactly. And the fact is like literally just saying what happened, like literally without the emotional piece, right? When most times when people are talking, like you'll be surprised when I'm working with couples and I'm explaining this process to them, it takes them a minute to actually get back to the fact of not putting I felt this way or you made me feel this way kind of thing. But once they get it, it's amazing because like I've actually have a couple of the guy came back and he's like, I'm fizzing everybody. It's like it's his own little action word. You know, I fizz my, employee today and I fizz my kid. It's super funny, but it works. It really works and you can see the difference in the relationship because of that ability to communicate more effectively.
Yeah, I think what also makes it easier for people to understand is that two people could be in the same situation and they could both react to it differently. Like, two people could have a birthday. One person could be really happy. They're a year older. They're better. They're maybe have past legal age. I don't know. There's a million things going on. Another person is sad. They're like, where did my life turn to? You both had the same event. Fact was, it was both their birthday. But after that, it was just stories and emotions and things like that.
Exactly. Such a great example because like it could be my birthday, we could both be turning, 30. Let's just say that we are, because I'm not. I'm way beyond that. But say we're both turning 30 and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I accomplished so many things in my life. And then you can be like, I haven't accomplished anything near what I said that I was going to set out, to do. It's an act. I mean, it's a fact of our being our birthdays, but how we interpret it and the impact of that can be so different. Or a person who's experienced COVID are now like, hey, you know what, this happened and I couldn't see my family and it, however, we actually now can do Zoom and I actually had more family members that were able to attend where normally I can't because it's like people that I'm only able to entertain the people that's here in person. So it just depends on how you allow how even the pandemic, how it interprets the impact that it had for you. And then the person on the other end, just being able to validate that that's your perception of how it was, and then moving forward.
Yeah. So my next question is, how do you make that safe space to go and cheer about your impact? Because you want to say how you felt and you don't want your partner to go and attack you like, why are you being angry at that? I didn't mean to make you angry or whatever else would happen.
So one of the things that I do is, and like everything that I teach other people, I do myself. I actually use my phone as a venting method. I use the voice recorder and I say exactly what I want to say with all the emotions and everything. And then when I come back, I'm able to actually fizz it out. I'm actually able to stick to the fact and talk about my impact of the action and not the person. One of the biggest things is that we do is when we're upset and we use the word you, oh my gosh, your hair stands up and you become super defensive and you can't wait to that person to shut up if you even allow them to finish in order for you to say what say your part. And so I think that's what's super huge and important is to get out of your emotions first. And if you don't have or if you're a person that don't do the recording, write out your actual feelings and emotions, and then have that conversation when you are feeling calm and relaxed. Because if not, then if you approach a situation aggressively, it automatically makes a person put on edge. And then so when they're in their defensive stance, nothing that you say is going to really penetrate because they're having to deal with their emotions, right? And even going into that, we are creatures of habit and we respond to things based on experience. So if you're talking to a person who's had a really rough childhood or have had bad experiences, like you've often heard a guy say, when a woman says we need to talk, you're like, oh man, right? Based on they're already defensive and coming in with the guard up because they're like, you said we need to talk, which is it kind of thing. So whenever you approach, when they know that you have a conversation, we need to talk, and it can be something good and bad. They don't know which way you're coming. But if you're a person that actually comes to that place of like, we need to talk, and this person is coming from their experience of the word we need to talk being bad, then you have to make sure that you approach it by staying factual. Like earlier today, we were talking, and right, we were talking. That is a fact. So you start off with having facts is the less easier part, like the procedure. We were talking about, having driving or going somewhere for the holiday. And, and I was explaining to you that my mom is sick and I don't feel comfortable. And then when you, stated that we should go anyway, it made me feel like I wasn't being heard, like I wasn't being validated, and that my mother's health was not important. I didn't say not important to you. I said it wasn't important. That was my feeling. Then we, go on into whatever solution that you would like to see happen differently. And so I think that that's what's super huge and important, is just not coming from an aggressive and defensive stance. Really helps a person put their guard down and be willing to listen to what you have to say.
Yeah, literally like a few words could change the whole entire thing. Yeah. Now this fits and tone for sure, body language and everything. But I'm saying, like, even let's say like my mother's health isn't important or important to you could go and change everything. But yeah, from the beginning, it's like how you coming in. We need to talk. Yeah, like you said, nobody's going to want to talk. Now, Fizz works after the argument. Like, at what point do you play around with Fizz?
I use Fizz all the time. Like, literally, no matter when I'm communicating with people, I use Fizz. And people who know me go, you just fizzed me, didn't you? Because it's really about always coming for a solution. Like when I'm communicating with someone, I'm communicating with a purpose. And at the end of the day, there's something that you want to get out of it, building up the relationship or something, even from a business standpoint of, hey, I have people that'll reach out to me and they'll want to connect. And, and their first thing they'll say is like, how big is your mailing list? How big is this or whatever? And it's kind of like, well, and actually this happened to me recently, and I had to stop and pause before I responded back because I literally got into my feelings in that moment. Because somebody asking about how big is your email list, and for people who are, not into business may go, what does that mean? How is that important? But it's kind of like asking a person, meeting somebody for the first time and saying, hey, ST, how are you doing? What is your credit score?
Yeah.
Be like, why do you want to know? And I don't know you. Right. And so when people do that, so what I had to do was I always start off with, thank you for connecting and reaching out to me. Unfortunately, when you asked me about my emailing list, I automatically felt a certain kind of emotions that I can't even explain, right? Impact. How I like to work with entrepreneurs is to find out how we connect with our clients and ensure that we are having the same common goal of making sure our clients are getting services, not just about a person's email list. So if that's something that you're interested in, please let me know and that we can move forward.
I love that so much because I have that all the time also. How big is your email list? How big is your audience? I think I'm going to start doing that.
Exactly. Because it's like my goal is to make sure that my audience and my clients and, that there's a common piece of them getting content. I don't care if it's two people. Those two people deserve to hear something great. So, or reach out. Now, say if I have a list of 500 and I have a good relationship with my list of 500, I'm going to have a better conversion rate with my little 500 people than somebody who has a list of 20,000 or more if they don't have a good relationship. And all they do is constantly bombarding them with, like I'll delete people who are constantly feeling like they're selling to me. Like, and I know that that's the going thing, but it's kind of like, how do we support one another and making sure that our clients are getting the support that they need? Because at the end of the day, it's about them. It's not about me. I will get what I, money or whatever at the end of it. But if I'm taking care of my clients and my audience and my email list, then the rest of it is history. And that's what, one of the things I feel is so important. So I have conversations like that where when people, as soon as they say it, I'm like, ugh. So I get out of my feelings and then I go back to using Fizz.
I love it. So like literally whenever, all the time. Now, how long have you been doing this? And from when you did it, how did it affect your own marriage?
So I'm no longer, actually, I wish I would have discovered this when I was married before, honestly. Because I was young. I was in my early 20s when I was married, and my now ex-husband, him and I, we really were at different places in our lives. And I actually was dealing with my own unresolved trauma, I should say, like, being abused as a child and not really ever dealing with it at all. And so one of the biggest things as a therapist, I'm a trauma therapist. And so I use Fizz and teach my clients it all the time because when people are hurt people with their words and their actions. And a lot of times it's not intentional. I mean, you think about an animal who has been abused, and not comparing anybody that's listening to animals, please don't, but I just give analogies so that you can visually see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's easier when it's not people. We get less defensive. So when it's animals, objects, then
Exactly. And then I don't want people like, oh, she was comparing us to an animal. No, not at all. But when you see someone that has been hurt or like not even just someone, but like an animal that has been hurt and you can see them like homeless and, just kind of shuffling around, but they've been abused. When you go, your intent is to pet them, to show them love. But when that animal doesn't know what your intention is and you reach out to touch it, it like raises back and it bares its teeth. And then you're like, oh, you stupid dog. Well, no, that's that animal's defense mechanism because they're scared. They don't know what your intention is. And so I actually, not saying that I was like that, aggressive or attacking, but my ex-husband had his own stuff and I had mine. And so basically what we did was we were constantly stepping in each other's landmine. And that, like you have a mine, as soon as you step, it's like boom in the face. And it's kind of like no control whatsoever. And I always focused on never hurting him because that's one of the things that I had experienced. So I never wanted to give it back. But I just knew that he was not in a place to support me in my emotional growth. And I was not, at that point, at the end, I was not willing to support his emotional growth. There's a difference. Because by the time our marriage ended, I was a therapist. I knew what was going on, but he was more focused on being from a very selfish place and was not intending and not attempting to do the right thing. Like when I asked for going to marriage counseling, it was more like, no, I don't want to go to marriage counseling. I don't want them telling me what to do. And then when I said, okay, well, I'm done, it's like, okay, well, let's go to see our pastor. And then come to find out he's been lying, he was cheating, and all the things that I'm like, absolutely not. And so for me at that point, it didn't even matter. I didn't care. I was just done. However, when working with my couple in relationships I have now, I definitely use Fizz like in everything, in my actual relationship, in my relationship with my daughter. So my relationship with my significant other, I should say, my daughter, coworkers, employees, higher ups than me. I use Fizz all the time, and I find people listen a lot better. I'm also very intent in my words. I'll pause before if somebody says something that I really want, and my face a lot of times speaks for me. But when I really want to say something that is like not nice, because no matter we're human beings, I pause and I just look at that person for a little bit and then I respond. And I use Fizz to have that communication. When I'm disciplining my employees, I use Fizz. And so they actually can accept it a lot better because I'm focusing on the solution instead of focusing on the problem. It happened. So how do we move forward from here? Kind of thing. And that it just makes changes things. And so when a person walks away from me, the intent is always for them to leave different than when they first approached me. And so because that is my mission and my goal, I always leave them with nuggets to say, I never thought about that. Yeah, this is something that I can try differently. So, answering your question from a, personal standpoint, it works in every single part of my life. And I've been doing it I started doing Fizz. I discovered it, came up my little acronym probably like 6 years ago, maybe longer. So I've been doing it for quite some time. I probably maybe longer than that because I was doing it for such a long time that I didn't even realize that I was doing it until I put words to it.
Yeah, it makes it clear when you have like Fizz, but like you obviously in order to come up with those letters, you have to have been doing it already.
Yeah, I've been doing it for a while without me realizing that that's what I was doing. Oftentimes I'll do things. I'm like, man, I didn't realize that I have been doing that. Like it just comes so naturally. I think it came from when I learned what I don't like in communication. And so it actually has been a very long time because I don't like when people are super aggressive towards me, who are pushy, who comes off as if they're like, and that happens now. Like people will bring request you and now they're in your inbox and they're bombarding you with their promotional stuff or, buy my this or watch my webinar or do this. And there's no conversation of connection happening. And so you're already starting off with, I don't care if this relationship doesn't work or not, because I don't even know you and you're attempting to jump into a space that you never was invited in, like I invited you to be a part of to get to know me, not to actually now sell to me. So at that point, I'll actually leave a voice recording when I respond back and say, I appreciate the connection. However, this is not the way that I connect. If you're interested in knowing more about me, let's schedule a call. Let's schedule a call just to meet and greet and get to know. Otherwise, I appreciate if you do not send me messages with your webinars or anything else like that until you actually understand who I am and what I'm looking for.
Yeah, like you're trying to sell me. How do I know if it even works for me? If it works, then like, cool, maybe I'll be interested. But other than that, then...
Yeah. I had a guy recently, him and his wife, it was a couple that actually did this. And I hope that they listen to this episode so that they could feel bad about themselves. But he sent me a message and he goes, hi, how are you doing? What are your focus for in the new year? I'm like, okay, well, you're attempting to learn what I got going on. And I'm fine with that. I responded back, continue growing my podcast, working on my workshop that I have coming up, working on my new program that I'm creating, working, updating my membership site and, like all the other, I have a lot of stuff that I'm doing. And then his wife turned around and messaged me with the exact same message. The difference is, well, they both had misspelling words. They just misspelled the words that they were using. So when she messaged me, I said, do you happen to know so-and-so? And she says, LOL, that's my husband. And I said, I could tell because you and your husband both said the exact same thing, and you both had misspellings in your words. And it was just like a short sentence, but it was misspelled words. It was hilarious. So then he messaged me back and he said, wow, that's great. How can I support you? Do you know anybody that actually needs credit repair? And I started laughing. So I did a voicemail message, that I've got to the point where it takes me I talk fast. So it's quicker for me to leave a message than for me to type a long message. And I just said, first of all, I think, ensure that your wife is sitting there next to you when you hear this message. How do you go into someone's box and just say, hi, how are you doing? How can I support you when that's really not your intent? Your intent comes off to me as if you really wanted to sell me something. But my question for you is, I don't know you, you don't know me. And you're talking about credit, where it's people's personal finances and their credit, their social security number and their personal information that you're asking me to relinquish to you, and I don't know you. If you really want to actually ever get a referral from me, the best thing for you to do is build a relationship with me for me to even know who you are and what your company's about. The other thing is to ensure that you don't have all these typos in your messages, because the second was even worse. I was like, in order for you to come off as credible, thank you. And just letting you know that I am blocking and deleting you because of the fact that I felt like this right here, the way it came off, I would never refer anyone to you because this does not feel comfortable to me. So, fact, impact, and solution. and I deleted and blocked him.
That was the end of it. Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, just very clear. And his wife actually messaged me back and she said, thank you so much for letting us know how we can actually, increase and do our services better. Because right away, he actually messaged me back and goes, so do you know anyone or not? And I'm like, are you kidding me? So there's some really aggressive people out there. And it's like, I think one of the things too is not feeling like it's my mission to change people's way of communicating. But if I can, sometimes people don't know. Like we are a society that we're very selfish. We are focused on what we can get from another person. We're not really focused on how we can help people. But if I can actually take the step back and actually figure out how I can help someone by giving them a little nugget of, hey, if you want to improve your business, this is the best way to do it without me actually taking up too much of my time, I have no problem doing it,
Yeah.
So.
Well, you know what? If they really take your advice, their business will grow much faster than what they're doing right now.
Exactly. Because I'm like, maybe there has been some people that have been comfortable sending you, people's names, which I find that being very disrespectful. But, and the thing about it is there's a lot of people that tell you the what and the why, like, hey, you need to start using Messenger, like they have the bots, right? And so people are attempting to use their own version of a bot that automatically send you a message to your Messenger. However, a bot tries to get to know you. It's set up to be like, how are you doing? And it asks questions like, hey, I have this webinar. Is this something you're interested in? Yes or no? If the person says no, thank you for your time. If you say yes, here's the replay. Let me know how I can support you, kind of thing. I mean, even that has better outcome than you sitting there sending a mistyped message.
I love it. You are so assertive and I love it. I love it so much. Okay. Now, before we get to our final question, where else could people find more information about you?
Most definitely. I actually said the easiest way and the one simple, instead of me rambling off a bunch of links and stuff, you can just go to my website. It's www.decidetomove.com. And that's DECIDETOMOVE.com, decidetomove.com. It has all the links to all my social media. It has a contact page. It also has several freebies that I have on there. So you can go to my page and download some freebies and, anything that you need. And then in that freebie, it actually has the back page of my Facebook group, where I hang out, and all the other details that you want to know. So that way you get a little something if you want to know more about me as well.
Awesome. So I want to make sure to put that link in the show notes. So guys, you could go and find it. Now, for our final question, this is a question I ask everyone. How would you describe an extraordinary relationship without using these 3 words? Love, connection, and communication.
Okay. So for me, it's about respect and validation.
Respect and validation. And by doing Fizz, you'll totally get that.
Yes. And when you respect the other person, your intent is to focus on validating them. And validating does not mean that you have to agree. Validating is feeling heard. I hear what you're saying and and repeating back to them. So this is what I hear you're saying, blah, blah, blah. And that gives the person an opportunity to say, no, that's not what I meant, or that's not what I said, because when you're repeating, you're giving them opportunity to hear your interpretation of what you said. Just like text messaging. And also I'm not a big person when it comes to actually having a relationship via text message only, because there's so much more to inflectuation and how a word, like words that's being said. Words are words until the person on the other side can resonate or receive it. So if you send me, I'll just use this example. I had a friend who was, her husband told her that he no longer wanted to be married to her. And they've been married for 14 years and she wanted to have a child, and it was unexpected. It was like a blow to her. And so to help her deal with her ego and get her emotions back in control, she really just started kind of being a little bit wild out there, messaging guys, getting online, and just attempting to regain her respect as well as some validation for herself. And so there was a guy that messaged her and it was like, hi, how are you doing? She's like, oh my God, he wants me. He's like, hi, how are you? And I was like, I don't think that's how he said it, but okay. You know, because we put our own feelings. If I'm feeling upset and somebody just like, hi, I'm like, oh, what you mean just hi? Like you can't say something else, right? Like we actually put our own stuff in the middle of whatever we're feeling when it's just a text message. But when you can actually hear a person, you can hear their joy and you can hear, you know, the laughter and the emphasis and the tone that they put on stuff. And so just having a relationship via just a text message, please say no. It's not really a relationship.
And I think that's not even just the relationships, whether that's friends or other people that you want to become close to. It's not just text.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, respect and validation. I'll use those two words that are really super huge and important, because from there, when a person feels emotionally safe, they're willing to provide so much more to you.
So true. Totally agree. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Monica. This was awesome.
Thank you. It's so much fun being here. I love talking about relationships, communications, you know, anything to help people get better connected to one another, because I think that's what we're missing in today's society.
Totally.
Did you enjoy that episode? Could you do me a personal favor and subscribe and leave a review? It would mean a lot to me. Thank you so much and have an awesome day.